Standing in that sterile courtroom, listening to my son's biological mother claim I had poisoned him against her while she held legal papers demanding half his fortune, I smiled and handed the judge a single flash drive. "Your Honor, I think Tyler's own words will settle this matter quite nicely. What that drive contained would either vindicate 8 years of love or destroy everything we'd built together. Drop your city in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. Let's dive into the story. Let me tell you how we got here, because nothing about this case was what it seemed. My grandson Tyler was 15 when his parents dumped him on my doorstep like an unwanted Christmas gift that couldn't be returned. It was a Tuesday in March 2016, one of those bitter cold days where the wind cuts through your coat and straight into your bones. I was 61 then, recently retired from 30 years of teaching high school English, looking forward to quiet afternoons with my books and maybe finally learning to paint watercolors. The doorbell rang at 8:30 in the evening. Through the peephole, I saw Jennifer, my son David's ex-wife, shifting nervously on my front porch. Behind her stood Tyler, my grandson, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else on earth. 2 suitcases sat at his feet like condemned luggage. "Margaret," Jennifer said when I opened the door. Her voice had that fake sweetness she used when she wanted something. "We need to talk." I invited them in, though something in Jennifer's expression made my stomach tighten with worry. Tyler hadn't said a word, just stared at his shoes like they held the secrets of the universe. The kid was tall for 15, all elbows and knees, with his father's dark hair and his grandmother's stubborn jawline. "Coffee?" I offered, buying time to figure out what disaster had landed on my doorstep. "We can't stay long," Jennifer said, perching on the edge of my sofa like she might bolt at any moment. "Brad and I are moving to Portland. Tonight." Brad was husband number 3, a software developer who'd swept Jennifer off her feet 6 months earlier. I'd met him exactly once, at Tyler's birthday dinner, where he'd spent the entire meal checking his phone and interrupting every conversation to mention his startup's latest funding round. "Moving." I looked at Tyler, who was still studying his footwear like it was graduate-level coursework. "What about Tyler's school? His friends?" "That's why we're here," Jennifer said. And there it was, the tone I remembered from her marriage to my son. Sweet as honey, sharp as broken glass. "Tyler's decided he wants to live with you for a while." Decided. As if a 15-year-old had any choice when his mother was clearly about to abandon him. "Is that true, Tyler?" I asked. He finally looked up, and I saw my son David in those eyes. The same quiet intelligence, the same way of watching people to figure out what they really meant. "Yeah, Grandma, if it's okay with you." It wasn't a request, it was a plea. "The thing is," Jennifer continued, reaching into her designer purse, "we'll need you to sign some paperwork. Temporary guardianship just until we get settled in Portland and find Tyler a good school." She handed me a folder thick with legal documents. My teaching instincts kicked in immediately. When students brought me papers signed by their parents, I always read every word, carefully. "I'll need some time to review these," I said. Jennifer's smile became strained. "It's just standard stuff. Brad's lawyer prepared it. Nothing complicated." Nothing complicated. That should have been my first warning. "Tyler, honey," I said, "why don't you take your bags up to the spare room? You remember where it is?" He nodded and grabbed his suitcases. As he headed for the stairs, I caught his eye. 8 years of summer visits had taught us to communicate without words. His expression said everything I needed to know. He was scared, hurt, and trying not to show it. "Actually," Jennifer said, standing abruptly, "we really do need to get on the road. If you could just sign the guardianship papers, we'll handle the rest later." "Handle what rest?" But before I could ask, She was hugging Tyler goodbye with the kind of enthusiasm most people reserved for distant relatives at mandatory family reunions. "Be good for Grandma," she told him. "We'll call soon." They left in a cloud of expensive perfume and empty promises. Tyler and I watched from the window as their rental car disappeared into the night, taking his entire previous life with it. "Want to talk about it?" I asked. "Not really," he said. Then, after a moment, "They've been planning this for weeks. Found the apartment in Portland, arranged the job transfer. Brad thinks I'm complicated emotional baggage that would interfere with their fresh start." Complicated emotional baggage. A 15-year-old boy described like an unwieldy piece of luggage. "Well," I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded, I guess that makes us roommates. Tyler almost smiled. Yeah, I guess it does. That night, after Tyler fell asleep in the spare room that would become his bedroom for the next 8 years, I sat at my kitchen table reading through Jennifer's paperwork by lamplight. What I found made my blood run cold. This wasn't temporary guardianship. This was full custody transfer, complete with clauses that would make it nearly impossible for Tyler to contact his parents unless they initiated it. They hadn't just abandoned him. They'd legally erased him from their lives. But there was something else in that folder, hidden behind the custody papers. A bank statement, obviously included by mistake, showing deposits that made no sense. Regular payments from an account I didn't recognize, all marked with the notation, TS Trust Distribution, Tyler's initials. Someone had been making payments into an account in Tyler's name, payments that Jennifer apparently had access to. The next morning, Tyler appeared in my kitchen at 6:30, showered and dressed like he was heading to school. He'd found my coffee maker and had 2 steaming mugs waiting on the counter. "Oh, couldn't sleep?" I asked. "Not really." He handed me a mug. "Grandma, I need to tell you something. About the money." My heart skipped. 15-year-olds weren't supposed to know about money, not the kind of money that required lawyers and trust accounts. "What money, sweetheart?" Tyler sat down across from me, looking older than his years. "My dad. My real dad, not David. He left me a trust fund when he died. It's supposed to pay for college, maybe graduate school. Mom's been using it for other things. David wasn't Tyler's biological father. I'd known that since the divorce, when the truth came out during custody proceedings. Tyler's real father had been killed in a car accident when Tyler was 3, leaving behind a substantial life insurance policy that went into trust for his son. How do you know about this? I overheard Mom and Brad talking last week. The trust fund administrator has been asking questions about the withdrawals. Apparently, the money's supposed to be used only for my education and basic living expenses. But Mom's been taking out thousands every month for other stuff. That explained the bank statement in Jennifer's paperwork. She wasn't just abandoning Tyler. She was running from the consequences of stealing his inheritance. "How much is left?" Tyler pulled out his phone and showed me a screenshot. I accessed the account online last month. Username and password were my birth date and social security number. Mom never thought I'd be smart enough to figure it out. The balance made me whistle low. Even after Jennifer's unauthorized withdrawals, there was still over $200,000 in Tyler's education trust. "Tyler, this is serious. Your mother could go to jail for this." "I know." His voice was steady, matter of fact. "That's why they're really moving to Portland. Brad thinks if they establish residency in Oregon and claim I'm a runaway who refused to come with them, they can avoid prosecution." I stared at this remarkable kid who'd been forced to grow up too fast, who understood legal strategy and financial fraud at an age when most teenagers were worried about acne and homework. "What do you want to do?" "I want to stay here, with you. If you'll have me." "Of course I'll have you." "But Tyler, we need to do this properly. Legal guardianship, school enrollment, making sure your trust fund is protected." I already looked into it. He pulled out a folder from his backpack. "I've been researching emancipation laws and guardianship procedures. There's a lawyer downtown, Sarah Martinez, who specializes in cases where kids need protection from their parents. I found her website last week. This kid had been planning his own rescue operation while his mother planned his abandonment. You've been busy." "I've had to be." That afternoon, we sat in Sarah Martinez's office while she reviewed Tyler's documentation with the sharp efficiency of someone who'd seen too many cases like this. Sarah was maybe 40, with kind eyes and the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who fought for kids every day. "This is textbook financial abuse," she told us after reading through everything. The trust fund theft, the abandonment disguised as voluntary placement, the attempt to establish alternate residency to avoid consequences. "Tyler, you're very lucky your grandmother is willing to take guardianship. What happens to my mom?" Sarah's expression softened. "That depends on whether she returns the money voluntarily and cooperates with the investigation. But Tyler, I have to ask, are you sure you want to pursue this once we file these papers? There's no going back. Your relationship with your mother will be permanently changed." Tyler was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "She changed it first. I'm just protecting what's left." We walked out of Sarah's office that day with temporary emergency guardianship papers and a plan to file for permanent custody within the month. Tyler was officially my responsibility, and I was officially his legal guardian. That evening, my phone rang. Jennifer's number. "Margaret, we need to talk." Her voice was different now, desperate. "There's been a misunderstanding about Tyler's situation." "No misunderstanding," I said calmly. "I filed for legal guardianship. Tyler will be staying with me permanently." "You can't do that. I'm his mother. Mothers don't steal their children's inheritance money and abandon them to avoid prosecution." The silence on the other end was deafening. "I don't know what Tyler told you, but Tyler didn't tell me anything. Your lawyer did. The one who prepared these very thorough custody transfer documents that you tried to trick me into signing." When Jennifer spoke again, her voice was pure ice. "This isn't over, Margaret. Tyler is my son, and I will get him back, along with what's rightfully ours." She hung up before I could respond. But her words stuck with me. What's rightfully ours, not his, ours. That night, Tyler found me sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the phone. "She called, didn't she?" "How did you know?" "Because she's predictable. She's not calling because she misses me or feels guilty. She's calling because someone told her about the guardianship papers, and she's realizing she might actually face consequences." "Tyler, are you sure you're only 15? He smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen since he arrived. "Sometimes I feel like I'm 40, but yeah, I'm 15, and I'm exactly where I want to be." I hugged him then. This amazing kid who'd been forced to navigate adult problems with more grace and intelligence than most adults managed. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. But as I fell asleep that night, Jennifer's words echoed in my head. "This isn't over." Something told me she was absolutely right. 6 months later, Tyler had transformed my quiet retirement into something I'd never expected, the most rewarding challenge of my life. He'd enrolled at Lincoln High School, made the honor roll twice, and joined the computer programming club. Most evenings, he could be found at the kitchen table, textbooks spread around his laptop like academic war plans. The kid was brilliant. Not just smart, brilliant. His teachers started calling to tell me about his exceptional work in calculus and computer science. His programming teacher, Mr. Henderson, pulled me aside at parent-teacher conferences to explain that Tyler was already working at college level. "Mrs. Thornton," he said, "Tyler's not just learning programming languages. He's inventing solutions to problems I didn't even know existed. I've been teaching for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like it." What Mr. Henderson didn't know was what I discovered when Tyler left his laptop open one evening. He wasn't just doing homework. He'd been developing some kind of mobile application, working late into the night on code that looked like advanced mathematics to my English teacher eyes. "Tyler," I said the next morning over breakfast, "what exactly are you building on that computer?" He looked up from his cereal, suddenly sheepish. "It's probably nothing. Just an idea I had for making online shopping more secure." "Show me." He walked me through his creation, explaining in terms I could actually understand. Tyler had designed an app that would allow people to make online purchases without ever sharing their actual credit card information. Instead, the app generated temporary, one-time use payment codes that would protect users from fraud and identity theft. "Tyler, this is incredible. Have you shown this to anyone?" "Just Mr. Henderson. He thinks I should enter it in the state technology competition next month." "You absolutely should." What I didn't tell Tyler was that I'd been doing some research of my own. During my lunch breaks at the library, I'd taken a part-time job shelving books to help with Tyler's expenses. I'd been reading about teenage entrepreneurs and technology startups. Kids Tyler's age were creating companies, getting investors, making millions. The state technology competition was held at the university in April. I watched Tyler present his security app to a panel of judges that included professors, business executives, and venture capital investors. He explained complex technical concepts with the clarity of a natural teacher, answered their rapid-fire questions with confidence, and demonstrated his app with the kind of stage presence that came from absolute certainty in his work. He won. First place, a $10,000 scholarship, and something even more valuable, the business card of every judge on that panel. "Mrs. Thornton," said a woman in an expensive suit who introduced herself as Victoria Chen from Pacific Northwest Ventures. Your grandson has created something remarkable. Has he considered turning this into an actual business? He's 16, I said. Shouldn't he be thinking about college? Victoria smiled. Mrs. Thornton, kids Tyler's age are running multi-million-dollar companies. If he's interested, I'd love to arrange a meeting to discuss investment opportunities. That night, Tyler and I sat in our kitchen, because it truly felt like ours now, and talked about possibilities that seemed too incredible to be real. What do you think, Grandma? Should I try to start a real company? I looked at this remarkable young man who'd gone from abandoned teenager to potential entrepreneur in less than a year. Tyler, I think you should try whatever makes you happy. But first, I need to ask you something important. What? Are you doing this because you love it? Or because you think you need to prove something? Tyler was quiet for a long moment, considering the question with the seriousness it deserved. Both, I guess. I love the programming, the problem solving, the way everything clicks together when you figure out the right solution. But yeah, I also want to prove that I'm worth more than she thought. She, his mother. Jennifer's abandonment still motivated him, even as he built something extraordinary. Tyler, you don't have to prove your worth to anyone, especially not to someone who couldn't see it in the first place. I know, he said, but if I can build something amazing, something that helps people and makes money at the same time, wouldn't that be the best kind of proof? 3 weeks later, Victoria Chen sat in our living room with a term sheet that made my head spin. Pacific Northwest Ventures wanted to invest $500,000 in Tyler's security app company in exchange for 30% ownership. They'd provide office space, mentorship, legal support, and connections to major retailers who might want to license Tyler's technology. The standard age requirement for business ownership is 18, Victoria explained, but we can structure this as a partnership with Mrs. Thornton as the legal business owner until Tyler reaches majority. I looked at Tyler. What do you think? I think I want to try. Then let's try. We signed the papers on Tyler's 17th birthday. Secure Shop Technologies was officially born, with Tyler as Chief Technology Officer, me as nominal CEO, and Victoria as lead investor and advisor. What happened next exceeded everyone's wildest projections. Tyler's app launched 6 months later and was adopted by 3 major online retailers within the first quarter. By Christmas, Secure Shop was processing over 1 million transactions per month. By Tyler's 18th birthday, we had 12 employees and had expanded into fraud prevention for small businesses. Jennifer called exactly once during this period. Tyler had just been featured in a local newspaper article about young entrepreneurs when my phone rang. I saw the article, she said. No greeting, no pleasantries. Tyler's doing well. Yes, he is. I suppose you think this proves something. It proves Tyler's remarkable. But I already knew that. I want to see him. You'll have to ask him yourself. He's 18 now. He makes his own decisions. Give me his number. No. If you want to contact your son, you can figure out how to do it yourself, just like he had to figure out how to live without you. She hung up. Tyler never mentioned receiving any calls from his mother, and I never asked. By the time Tyler turned 20, Secure Shop Technologies had grown into something none of us had anticipated. We'd moved to a real office building, hired a team of 26 employees, and secured contracts with some of the biggest names in e-commerce. Tyler had become the public face of the company, speaking at conferences and being interviewed by business magazines about the future of online security. But it was Tyler's 21st birthday when everything changed. Victoria came to our house that evening with a bottle of champagne and an expression I'd never seen before. Tyler, she said, we need to talk about an opportunity that just came up. Amazon wants to buy Secure Shop. The number she mentioned made me sit down hard. $47 million. Tyler would become one of the youngest millionaires in the state. Our quiet little family business had somehow become worth more money than I'd ever imagined existed. What do you think, Grandma? Tyler asked. I looked at this amazing young man who'd started with nothing but determination and brilliance, who'd built something extraordinary while still finding time to help with dishes and remember to call me if he was going to be late coming home. I think, I said carefully, that you should do whatever feels right to you. But Tyler, I need to tell you something. What? I'm proud of you. Not because of the money or the success, but because of who you are. You're kind, hardworking, and decent. Money doesn't change that, but don't let it define it either. Tyler smiled. I know exactly what I want to do with the money, and I know exactly who I want to share it with. 3 weeks later, we sat in a lawyer's office signing papers that would change our lives forever. Tyler sold Secure Shop Technologies to Amazon for $47 million. But before the ink was dry, Tyler handed me a set of documents I hadn't expected. He'd used part of the money to buy me a house. Not just any house, but the Victorian mansion I'd admired during our evening walks for the past 5 years. The house came with a trust fund that would pay all my expenses for the rest of my life and a savings account with enough money to travel anywhere I wanted to go. Tyler, I can't accept this. Yes, you can. You saved my life, Grandma. Let me return the favor. That night, I lay in bed thinking about the incredible journey we'd been on together. From abandoned teenager to millionaire entrepreneur in 5 years. It seemed like a fairy tale. But fairy tales I remembered from my years teaching literature often have villains who return just when the heroes think they're safe. I should have been more careful what I wished for. 2 months after the Amazon sale, life had settled into a routine that felt too good to be true. Tyler had moved into a downtown apartment. Nothing flashy, just a nice 2-bedroom with a view of the city, while I adapted to living alone in the beautiful Victorian house he'd bought me. We still had dinner together twice a week, and he called every evening to check in. "I'm 23, Grandma," he'd say when I worried about him living alone. "Most people my age have been on their own for years." "Most people your age aren't worth $47 million, I'd respond. "Most of that money's invested. I live off a pretty modest allowance." Modest for a millionaire was still more than I'd ever imagined having. But Tyler had always been practical about money. He'd bought a reliable used car, filled his apartment with furniture from sensible stores, and his biggest splurges were donations to the local STEM education program and a very nice coffee machine. I should have known the calm wouldn't last. It was a Thursday morning in early November when my peaceful retirement exploded. I was in my garden, preparing the flower beds for winter, when a car I didn't recognize pulled into my driveway. A woman emerged from the passenger side, and even from a distance, I recognized the expensive highlights and designer clothing that had always been Jennifer's signatures. She looked good, rested, confident, like someone who'd spent the last 7 years convincing herself she'd made all the right choices. The man who got out of the driver's side was new, tall, silver-haired, wearing the kind of suit that whispered money rather than shouting it. I stood up slowly, brushing dirt from my gardening gloves. After 7 years of silence, Jennifer had apparently decided it was time to resurface. "Hello, Margaret." Her voice was different now, more polished, like she'd been practicing professional conversations in expensive rooms. "Jennifer, I didn't invite them closer, didn't suggest we go inside. Whatever this was, it could happen right here in my garden where the neighbors could see. This is my husband, Brad Caldwell." She gestured to the silver-haired man. "Brad, this is Tyler's grandmother, Mrs. Thornton." Brad stepped forward with an practiced smile and an extended hand. "I've heard so much about you." I didn't shake his hand. I wish I could say the same. The smile faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. Lawyer, I thought, or salesman. Someone used to dealing with hostile audiences. "We were hoping to speak with you about Tyler," Jennifer said. "Perhaps we could go inside." "I think here is fine." "Say what you came to say." Jennifer glanced around nervously, clearly uncomfortable with the public setting. "Margaret, I know things ended badly between us. I made some mistakes, and I've regretted them every day since." Mistakes. Stealing your child's inheritance and abandoning him was a mistake, like forgetting to turn off the coffee pot or missing a dental appointment. "I'd like to see Tyler," she continued, "to apologize, to try to rebuild our relationship. You know where he lives. You know where he works. If you wanted to apologize, you could have done it any time in the last 7 years." Brad stepped forward, clearly taking over the conversation. "Mrs. Thornton, Jennifer's been getting counseling, working through the issues that led to her poor decisions. She's ready to be a mother to Tyler now." Ready to be a mother. To a 23-year-old millionaire. What a remarkable coincidence. "Tyler's an adult," I said. "If he wants a relationship with his mother, that's his choice to make." "Actually," Brad said, his voice taking on a slightly different tone, "there's something else we need to discuss. We've been consulting with family law attorneys about Tyler's situation." My blood chilled. Here it came. You see, when Jennifer was going through her difficult period 8 years ago, she wasn't thinking clearly. The custody arrangements she made weren't really in Tyler's best interests. Tyler's custody was never transferred to Jennifer. She abandoned him. I filed for legal guardianship to protect him. That's where things get complicated, Brad continued smoothly. According to our research, you used Tyler's vulnerable emotional state to manipulate him into requesting guardianship, a technique called parental alienation. Parental alienation. I'd heard the term before, usually in bitter custody disputes where one parent convinced a child to reject the other. But Tyler hadn't needed convincing. He'd experienced his mother's choices firsthand. That's absurd, I said. Is it? Jennifer's voice was stronger now, like she'd found her script. Tyler was 15, traumatized by the move to Portland, convinced I was abandoning him. You took advantage of his confusion to turn him against me. I took advantage of nothing. You left him on my doorstep with signed custody papers. Papers I was pressured to sign under emotional duress, Brad said. Jennifer was struggling with depression, trying to cope with a new marriage and a major life change. She made the best decision she could with the information she had at the time. The revision of history was breathtaking. Jennifer had stolen from Tyler's trust fund, planned her exit strategy, and abandoned him to avoid prosecution. Now she was the victim of depression and my manipulation. What do you want? I asked. Brad smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. This was what he'd been building toward. We want Tyler back in Jennifer's life where he belongs. We're prepared to file a lawsuit claiming parental alienation and seeking restoration of Jennifer's parental rights. Tyler's 23 years old. The alienation began when he was a minor. The psychological damage from that alienation continues to affect him as an adult. We're seeking court-ordered family therapy, supervised visitation, and financial compensation for the emotional distress Jennifer has suffered. Financial compensation. There it was. How much? I asked. We think $20 million would be appropriate, Brad said casually. Half of Tyler's settlement, representing the mother-son relationship that was unlawfully severed. $20 million. For the mother who'd stolen from her son's college fund and abandoned him to start fresh with a new husband. I see. I pulled off my gardening gloves slowly, buying time to think. And if Tyler refuses, then we'll have to seek legal remedies. Court-ordered reconciliation, supervised contact, whatever it takes to restore the relationship that was damaged by your interference. They were going to put Tyler through a public legal battle, drag his childhood trauma through the courts, and force him to pay his mother $20 million for the privilege of being abandoned. I'll need to discuss this with Tyler, I said. Of course, Jennifer said, her voice gentle now that the threat had been delivered. But Margaret, I hope you'll